Well, by the time the boys made it back to the back bedroom, I heard 3 kicks and the door was open. I was standing up. 2 gentlemen come in the house. And when she saw them, she walked towards them and she put her hands up and she said, "Oh shit." And the moment she said, "Oh shit," they fired. And it shot her in her hand, went into her cheek, blew the side of her face off, and she landed on the ground.
Welcome back, viewers, watchers, listeners. I'm your host, Tyler Owen. Got my co-host today. What's going on, man?
What's up?
How was the drive down in the Twister?
There was a storm that came through that knocked signs out on Glen Heights, so I got to do a tactical pause in Glen Heights for 40 minutes.
Yes.
I watched a podcast while I sat in the middle of it.
Did you identify any yard barns like in the movie Twister where you're fixing to strap yourself to the water pipe?
No, but it was interesting seeing like the sign for like Buc-ee's was on that side of the highway now and laying in the median rather than where it was supposed to be.
You didn't drive through it like the red Dodge in the movie?
It was sporty coming down this morning.
You didn't pass any Dorothy's, did you, with the little tornado twister?
No, I may have seen Toto.
Toto.
No Dorothy's.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad you made it down safely in your 3/4 ton. I'm just glad it cranked this morning. Apparently, I've got some maintenance I got to touch up on mine. Mine was hesitant about starting this morning. What's going on? We want to give some updates real quick before we dive off into.
Yeah, we got FOP State Board meeting coming up April 11th through 11 and 12th in Wichita Falls. Legislative session is in right now.
What resort is that at?
That is at Delta by Marriott in Wichita Falls. Brand new hotel.
Yeah.
It's really freaking nice. Yeah.
Be a good time.
Tmpa coming up.
27th
of April here
this
in
year
Austin.
on Saturday. Yep. And if you're in town for the Peace Officers Memorial, the bike ride is going to be, if you guys stick around for the bike ride too, it's going to be on Sunday. They couldn't get the plan changed due to Governor Abbott pushing the Peace Officers Memorial there on Saturday. So the bike ride is going to continue to come in on Sunday. So it'll be, man, if you've never been, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you going.
All good in Owen Hood in the
man. Everything's good. Everything is going good. I haven't been attacked by any deers. It's been good.
Deer repellent in your underwear?
I spray on masculine scented buck repellent.
Nice.
They sell buck repellent at the local gas station, so I spray it all over myself and smell.
His deer stalk him as he's jogging through the hill country.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's complicated.
He says he doesn't like it, but
he does.
Hey,
I'm not sure.
There's nothing wrong with feeling wanted. Nothing at all. So, man, who we got on today?
We have on someone that I've been excited to get on. It's been a work in progress trying to get her here. She does not live in this state. That I actually met through work when I was still detective before retiring at Garland. And we're going to dive into it today. She said she's never told her story. And we have Miss Melania on. Welcome.
Thanks.
It's a great story, honestly. And thank you for driving all the way down.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Not a bad drive.
Not a bad drive.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, I think it's important that we probably start off really the event that you got involved with that happened several years ago, and then we're going to dive off into this absolute crazy, interesting story that you're now sitting with us, and you are who you are today for it.
Yeah, maybe we start with that, or I'll just tell how we crossed paths.
Yeah.
You dive into that, and then maybe we can backtrack and start from the beginning once we tell everybody a foundation.
Okay.
Is that good?
Sounds good.
So I was working capers in Garland. We had a pause or something came up at some point, and we started trying to refocus on some cold cases. My partner, Gary Sweet, got assigned one. The event happened in Garland. Everybody involved was from Memphis, just about everybody involved. They either were previously from Memphis or currently all involved in Memphis. It had occurred 17 years prior, and multiple family members had been shot. And it was a whole chain of events and kind of failures and mistakes that led to it. And Gary Sweet and I worked on it I assisted him really trying to stay out of his way and do whatever I could do to support him. But it was multiple trips to Memphis trying to interview ex-wives and ex-girlfriends of suspects to see if they would tell us scoop, and met Melania during the course of that and learned that she was one of the children that was shot that day. the focus of the hit team that was there was her dad. He just happened to not be there when they showed up, and met Melania through that. That's how we met.
Give us kind of a breakdown of just a real quick synopsis of the case that you got, the overview of, basically suspects entered.
So my understanding on the police side, and I'll let her dive into what I'm missing or not from the police side. So there was a drug kingpin in Memphis, and I'm trying to recall his name, but he ended up in Forest City, federal penitentiary in Forest City, Arkansas, who was making millions of dollars a month there as a drug kingpin. He had sent his girlfriend to Houston to pick up a load of dope. She got popped, and Melania's dad was asked by the drug kingpin to go bond her out of jail. He gave, what do you want to call your dad in this?
Bear.
Bear?
Yeah.
That's what
Everybody
that's what I
called him.
referred to him.
Yeah.
So the drug kingpin, and do you remember his name by chance? It was Ronnie. Was it Ronnie?
Yeah, I remember his name being Ronnie. I don't remember
It was
his last
Ronnie.
name.
I can't remember his last name. Ronnie was a drug kingpin. He gave Bear $20,000 or $30,000 cash.
I want to say it was about 20,000.
About $20,000 cash to go get the drug kingpin's Ronnie's girlfriend out of jail in Houston to bond her out. Bear took the $20,000, made it to Garland, or made it to about Wichita Falls, and decided, I got $20,000 cash in my pocket. Nobody's going to care about a drug mule. Bear loaded up his family, moved to Garland, rented a house in Garland, and pocketed $20,000. Ronnie started reaching out, where's my money and where's my girlfriend? Bear wasn't taking his call, and Ronnie gave it some time and sent 4 people to Garland, did some intel work, and sent 4 people to Garland to handle business. Bear had just left to return his U-Haul truck, and when they knocked on the door, Melania's grandmother, Bear's mother, answered the door and was immediately murdered. And then they ran through the house, shooting the other kids. 4 of you home at the time?
Yeah, there was 4 of us total in the house.
3 of the 4 shot?
All 4 of them were shot. Only 1 was murdered. Only 1 died.
Okay.
Killed Melania's grandmother, and they shot all the kids. All the kids survived somehow. Grandmother, unfortunately, did not. The focus of their hit, Bear, wasn't there when it occurred. 17 years went by. Detectives worked on it. Fresh cases, people don't talk, and so sometimes on cold cases you have some opportunities, and that's how we've crossed paths. And it's a crazy tale. Bear, her father, there's stories that I was convinced wasn't true, and every time he would end up proving. He called me little brother. He found out I was a Marine, and so he would always kind of jack with me. He was a Marine, and so he always would share stuff with me. Shared with me once about flying weapons to the Sandinistans and through the CIA, and I guess he could read on my face that I called bullshit on it. And he brought a photo album of him flying weapons to Central America and flying cocaine back, landing in Mena, Arkansas for Barry Seal. He showed me photo albums, all of that, and I was like, okay. And there's just story after story, infiltrating the Mongols or the Outlaws.
Yeah,
and
Outlaws.
Just story after story after story.
Well, I think as a child of somebody who's involved with that type of lifestyle, you probably had a good indication. And how old were you whenever that all took place in Garland?
When the shooting happened, I was 12.
So you were very well of age to know Dad's kind of probably not the.
I knew.
He's not the banker, right?
Oh,
He's not the teacher.
Yeah, I learned that.
But I think this event essentially unfolded kind of what you to interpret as his lifestyle and who your father really was.
I learned my dad's lifestyle about 2 years prior to that, hiding underneath a bed holding a pistol so nobody got me. So
10 years old, hiding under a bed with a gun?
Yeah. Like, I've been shooting since I was about 7, so my dad made sure that all of us could shoot a gun just because of his lifestyle that he chose to have and his company that he chose to have. And the lifestyle that he chose to have.
You were the oldest sibling, right?
I'm the middle child.
Middle. I was
believe it
thinking
or
you were the
not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's important we start off. There was something we said off camera of kind of how your dad got involved with this lifestyle, and being a bondsman is very important
Yeah.
to that story. So I think it'd be a good starting point to kind of how this all began.
Sure. So
Start with where you were born at.
I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, Baptist Hospital. And they have 5 children. I'm the middle of 5. As far as it goes, how long have I known that my dad's been up to no good? I guess I figured that out when I was about 6 years old. Right before we moved out of Memphis, the feds came and kicked our house down, like kicked our doors down, came inside, and my grandmother, she knew it was coming, so my grandmother was rubbing holy water on all of our foreheads just to make sure that we were all good to the Lord in case something happened.
FBI, DEA, do you know?
I believe it was the FBI that came in that night. I know it was the city of Memphis, and I know it was the FBI. My dad was up in the attic. He had climbed out the little window and was hiding on the roof until they got done looking for whatever they were looking for him and guns, but there was nothing in the house. So they left.
He's hard to hide.
He is hard to hide. He's huge.
Was he
but
6'4", 6'5"?
I believe 6'4". And towards the end, he was a little bit taller, but as you get older, you shrink a little bit.
He's a large man.
Yeah, they called him Bear for a reason. But yeah, so he was up on the roof, and cops left, and he comes back down and tells us what he did, and he had stolen a U-Haul. That's what they were after him for. He had stolen a U-Haul and put it out in the woods and was slowly taking all the antiques out of it and getting rid of them, and they were looking for him for that. Well, he did something and was able to get away with it for a moment. And then right before I turned 8, they came and arrested him out of the house. And I didn't see my dad for probably 2 years.
That was still in Memphis.
Still in Memphis. He was at the Pennell Farm. We got to see him every great once in a while, but he ended up doing some kind of, I don't even know.
Infraction in jail.
Something to where they moved him out to the Pennell Farm, and they put him in his own little housing. Basically, he had a little cabin there where he was taking care of the grounds, and he had a pedophile that was in the housing with him. It was him and one other man. I don't remember this man's name, but I remember going over there and all 5 of us sitting there, and this little man was obsessed with me. He always wanted to pick me up and always wanted to put me on his shoulders, and I was young. I was like 7, maybe 8, and I remember I was on this man's shoulders, and my dad came behind me and grabbed me off of his shoulders and put me on his shoulders and punched the guy straight in the face because my dad could see his hands were getting a little bit too close.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, Dad got out.
For our listeners,
Yeah.
Penal Farm in Tennessee
Yeah.
is the equivalent of like our county jails.
Yeah.
They call their large county jail facilities there the Penal Farm,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll have farms and huge housing. It's kind of like in Louisiana,
Yeah.
where it's a huge sprawling estate, but they call it their penal farm rather than county lockup.
Yeah. So he had quite a bit of land that he was accessible to, and he could kind of disappear at weird times, which was bizarre, thinking what he was in. You'd think he'd be a little bit more secured. But, yeah, that's probably the first time I figured out that my dad was on some crazy stuff. You know, growing up, we always just got told that my dad had contracts for the federal government, that he did contracts. He was an independent contractor, basically. It wasn't until years later that I found out what he really was.
Right. So at that point, was he a part? When did he get involved with the motorcycle club?
So that was shortly after.
Okay,
we
so
moved.
he's in jail. You're 7. He gets out.
He gets out. We moved to Bartlett. I'm sorry. And we bought a house in Bartlett. And that's when he got involved with the Outlaws. And it's because my mom had a job working for Baron Bail Bonds, for Blue Baron, and his wife, Joyce Baron. And my dad
Huge
had
bonding company in Memphis,
huge
downtown
bonding
Memphis.
company. My dad had a motorcycle that our dog's Bull and Dozer had eaten the seats off of. And he ended up trading that to the clubhouse, the main president of the Outlaws, in order to get him into the Outlaws. That's the price he paid, basically. The only reason they let him in is because they knew that he worked for a bail bond company and that he could get them out of jail at a moment's notice. And he did. It didn't matter what time it was. He would go get you out. He'd drive you wherever the hell you needed to go. It didn't matter. Dad was one of those people that you call him if you got a problem, and it will be over shortly.
Got you.
And that's one thing that struck me. Not saying good or bad, and it wasn't always for good causes, but your dad was a fixer. I mean,
he was definitely a fixer, and he's portrayed that in a lot of his children. I, for one, am a fixer too, but I don't take it like that. But I'm very empathetic, and I will do just about anything from anybody, and I get that from my dad.
So he joins this motorcycle club, and you get you're now the child of a motorcycle patch-wearing member.
Yeah.
Talk about the environment of the Brotherhood, the sense of security that you probably had of your uncles that you probably, would
I wouldn't necessarily say that I had a lot of the security on it. I didn't really get to meet these people very much. They did come over to our house to do barbecues and family functions and stuff like that. Yeah. But you have to keep in mind, I'm the weird one of the group. I would go hide in my room and I would listen to everybody's conversations. I would stay away from arm's reach, because that's the rule you learn growing up. You don't stay within arm's reach of my father. If he can reach you, he's going to hit you. He's going to get you. So you stay away from him. Well, I was just the quiet one that listened to everything. So unfortunately, I knew it was coming. 95% of the time, I knew when shit was about to hit the fan. So
what's interesting is that majority of the motorcycle club members out there, all they're looking for is a sense of brotherhood they lost in the military.
Yeah.
And that sounds exactly like what Bear had going on, was that he found the brotherhood back with this motorcycle club. Mm-hmm. But talk about, he had the sense of brotherhood with the Outlaws, and at some point during some runs, there was a situation where there was a fork on the road, and he had a decision to make. And talk about how that weighed in on his decision to get out of it.
I think that had a lot to do with my mother. I don't think it had to do with my dad. My dad is a sociopath. If you know what a sociopath is, they have no empathy. They don't care. They just do not care. My mom has an overflowing amount of empathy.
Your mom's an angel.
For marrying that, absolutely. But what had happened is my mom and my dad had gotten a contract, and my mom got roped into it. My dad talked him into going with her. And the project was that they were going down to Mexico and pulling babies that had been murdered and that were cut open, and they would stuff them full of cocaine or drugs or whatever and stitch them back up and put them in clothes and put them in a car seat and drive them back over the border. And they would just play like they were sleeping children. So my mom is the one that said, I'm done. You've got to figure something else out. We've got to roll on these people. And from my understanding, that's what happened. Well, when it started coming down to, they were about to yank the Outlaws. The Outlaws made a hit on my sister. They were going to go kidnap her from school, and we got a call, my dad did, from I believe it was I.C. Smith. If it wasn't I.C. Smith, it was somebody in that realm, and told him, hey, we've got your daughter, and we're coming to get the rest of your family. So that happened about 7 o'clock at night. It was dark outside. I remember playing with my friends and coming in the house, and you have maybe an hour to get your shit together before they throw you in an all blacked out vehicle that you can't see out of. You don't know where you're going. You have no idea. All you know is the feds have you now, and that your parents have done some fucked up stuff, and now you get to see the other side of that.
Was it weird because obviously your father had a lifestyle that probably wasn't law enforcement followed. It wasn't within the realms of an outlaw. Right. And so was it strange for you at that moment of sitting with somebody who I wouldn't consider the FBI an enemy of your father, but they certainly weren't friends at the time.
I didn't like them at all.
But was it strange sitting in the car and all of a sudden being, now they're friendly, and now they're trying to,
They weren't friendly.
They weren't friendly.
They were not friendly at anybody. They were not friendly with my mom, my dad, none of us. There wasn't hardly any words said at all, and when it was said, it was very pointed and very spiky. None of us kids spoke. at all. We weren't allowed to.
To clarify for our listeners, they came and snatched y'all up to go
To the
put you
witness
in
protection program.
witness protection.
Yes. So they got us out of Bartlett and pulled up in a van that was it had drapes over the windows so you couldn't see out of it.
So literally, y'all get notified you have an hour to scoop whatever you can, and your whole family's uprooted right then.
Mm-hmm. We didn't take furniture. We had enough to throw in. Each of us had a backpack, and I had a purse. Like the girls had purses. But that's it. That's
How old
all.
were you at this time?
8. Just
Oh,
before 9.
gosh. Well, talk about the transition period from being a child, growing up around what you consider normal, what you grew up in as normal, and then being transitioned to WITSAC, and talk about the lifestyle of that process, and talk about the transition period of because it's very similar to foster care, and it's very similar to those kinds. So talk about that environment so our listener can kind of understand.
Was it explained to you as an 8-year-old where you were headed, or what this was, or who the stranger's van you were riding in?
No, they don't tell you any of that. You're taught to just, if you see a badge, you respect that badge and you go with that badge, and thankfully my parents were there, so that made it a little bit easier to just follow suit. But we were taught early on, we don't question. You never question. You just do what the hell you're told, and that's it. So none of us really questioned anything. We knew that Dad said do what the hell he needed us to do, and we did it. So from there, they picked us up, and couple of hotel rooms later, we ended up underneath the Pentagon. So that's where they keep the witness protection people, is underneath there until they figure out what the hell to do with you guys.
Wow.
So that's where we were. When you look at the Pentagon, there's a little wall. If you go up and you look over that wall, you're going to see a whole bunch of courtyards. Each of those courtyards are attached to a witness protection relocation apartment. Every single one of them. So we were in there for, we were in there for probably 3 months, where you don't get to see shit. You literally just walk out and look up, and all you get to see is sky, because there's a concrete wall as tall as the world, basically.
No homeschool, or is there anybody there trying to help you?
We've been pulled out of school so many times, and the government does not care about that. That is the most unfortunate part of it, is that you can only bullshit your way through so much, So getting into school and realizing that here I am in the 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and I don't know what the hell's going on because I've not been in school. So trying to play hurry up and catch up, I'm the only one that did it. My older sister and my older brother said, I'm done. I'm not doing this shit anymore. Aaron's a lot like my dad, so he says, scoot, scoot, I'm out. Modesta she just got tired of being picked on and bullied, I think. So it's been an interesting one, to say the least.
So you're stuck at the Pentagon.
You're stuck at the Pentagon. You don't really know what's going to happen next. From there, they moved us to 4 or 5 different places, including Salt Lake City. We went to Mississippi for a little bit. They literally just pick you up and move you all around until they can figure out where they're going to put you. So they thought we were going to be okay in Salt Lake City, and we were there for about 2 months. And then they said, we didn't realize there's a huge biker meetup here, so we're going to move you to... They moved us to Spokane, Washington. It was cold as fuck there, by the way. So when they moved us to Spokane, Washington, we tried our very best, but we are very Southern, and that just did not mend well. Well, my dad ended up going to work for Mercer Trucking Company, and he got in a really bad accident where he was coming up the stairs, and the people that worked in the office thought it would be really funny to spray off the staircase with the water hose, and it froze instantly. Knowing that my dad was about 20 minutes out, they waited for him to come, and they got it all on video. My dad broke his back in like 2 or 3 places and ended up having to have back surgery. And he didn't want to have it in Washington because they were going to put a pole in his back, and he didn't want to have a rod. So my mom searched around, and they found a place in Texas, which is how we ended up in Texas, to do the back surgery on him. Well, the feds didn't like the fact that my dad said, fuck y'all, we're out. We picked up with no warning. We did not tell the feds that we were leaving. We just got up and left. So we got out and we moved to Texas, to Garland. No, to Richardson, and then we moved to Garland. So Richardson was a lot of, you're not allowed to go outside. If you go outside, you're to stay on the front porch. That's pretty much the way that it was growing up. We did not go outside of view.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to.
But you basically told the FBI deuces, or the witness protection deuces, were out.
We're out. And Dad took every bit of money that we had and moved us on down to Richardson.
It's kind of how Bear did everything.
Yeah.
When he decided he's going to do something. And
when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Richardson, Texas, about how old are you?
10 and a half, maybe 11.
What year is that?
91.
So, what is the time frame, like the Sandinisans, that's the Iran-Contra affair, is that 80s?
Yeah, that was more than what I know. I don't know that part of it.
Just probably periods of time when he wasn't around. He was gone a lot, I guess.
I knew he was gone a lot. He was gone for 2 or 3 months at a time, either on his motorcycle or just being gone. That's my dad's MO. He would just disappear for months at a time and be doing his contracts or sleeping with other women, whatever he wanted to do, whatever felt good to his soul.
I guess the Mina and all of that, flying to Central America stuff you learned just later in life as an adult.
Yes.
Same with stealing Elvis.
No, I knew about the stealing Elvis thing. My dad was very proud of that one.
You remember that as a kid, or do you remember what
I was not born yet, but I remember seeing, we used to have pictures of the newspaper clippings and stuff all around our house and in our photo albums and stuff. So, yeah.
You want to share what you know on that one?
So what I know about the Elvis thing is that Vernon Presley and my grandfather used to be pretty good friends. We used to raise Shetland ponies and Tennessee walking horses. And Vernon bought a Shetland pony for Elvis. We have a picture of it somewhere. My mom has it, where Elvis is sitting on it. Well, whenever Elvis passed, Vernon reached out and asked if we could make a terroristic threat on his body, basically, and my dad could. And that's the only way that they would allow Elvis to be buried at Graceland. So my dad did. He took my mom's car. He went and hired 2 crackheads off the street, basically. Went and dug his body up and called the cops on himself, basically. And the people that were the drug dealers are the ones that caught the charges on it. My dad walked away free. I'm sure he did a couple of other little for him, but...
So it's another story. Bear was telling me he stole Elvis's body, and I'm like, yeah, sure you did.
No, he really did do it.
So we were in Memphis,
Google.
and your dad took me to the parking lot where he was summoned.
Mm-hmm.
There's a back gate out of Graceland, and Bear said that he got a phone call by one of his network that said, you need to be on this parking lot. Well, outside the back gate of Graceland is a strip center, and he said, I get summoned to go meet. He said, I show up. I'm figuring there's some work to do. And he said, the next thing I know, out the back gate of Graceland comes a car. It pulls up, and out pops Vernon. And Bear told me, because I knew what time it was right then. I knew what was up. So the city of Memphis, the city council, would not provide a waiver to the Presley family to keep Elvis from being buried at Forest Hill. I believe it's Forest Hill.
Yeah, it's Forest Hill.
Forest Hill's a public cemetery. Vernon said as long as he's in a public cemetery wide open to the public, they're going to desecrate his grave, they're going to steal his headstone, and the city council would not give a waiver. So Vernon told Bear, steal his body, it'll make the city council realize that I was right. And Bear said, I knew what time it was as soon as I saw Vernon get out of a car. So he said, I found 2 dudes that were willing to do stupid shit for Quaaludes.
Yep.
And we stole Elvis's body. He goes, the only part of the plan I didn't intend on is getting our car shot up.
Yep. My mom was so mad. She loved that car.
It was a station wagon, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Station wagon. He's like, the plan was perfect until the police started shooting our car up.
Yep.
Said he first tried to steal Elvis out of the mortuary. He stole a hearse and backed it up to the doors, and he was rolling Elvis down the hall. There was supposed to be nobody there, and all of a sudden there was security guards. Everybody turned out that they were there. So he canceled and found a couple of Quaalude heads, and there's articles about it. Another story where I'm like, there's no freaking way. You're full of crap. And that's
Absolutely true,
that's
though.
exactly what happened.
Absolutely true. If he can't do it, he'll find somebody to do it.
And it's fascinating. Your dad's he had a and I'm not promoting what he did, and he lived on the wrong side of the law a lot.
Yeah.
But it's crazy the network that your dad had. Know the background with the Vernon family, and I know there's some other historical ties your family has to some historical events, and was in Memphis at one point talking to an old Memphis homicide detective. Kind of looked like Sammy Davis Jr.
Aw.
And your dad was telling me that he had to jump out of a 2-story window one time getting shot at, and I'm talking to this little Sammy Davis Jr. Memphis detective, and he goes, "Yeah, I know who Bear is." He walked up, said, "Did you say Bear?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I shot at his ass. He dove out a window."
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the exact freaking story that Bear just told me.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He's not scared. He wasn't scared, that's for sure.
So, Outlaws, you guys go in Witsec. You end up in Richardson. What? And you're about 10 then?
Right about 11. We moved out of Richardson. We just started to get a bunch of really weird traffic around the house, like people that were showing up and we didn't know who they were. Like, I remember we moved shortly after this one incident had happened. I was home, I was sick, and I had I believe I had pneumonia or something. I was home for like almost a month straight from school, and I was sitting in the living room, and this man just kept beating on the door, and then he just kept looking through the windows. Like, he went from one side of the house to the other side of the house, and I was terrified. I'm home by myself. So I called Dad, and I was like, "Dad, get home. Like, I don't know who this man is." And the man had on a black hat that had like the Navy emblem across the roof of it. I remember this still to this day. And Dad ended up finding who he was because he came back like maybe an hour later, and Dad beat the tarnations out of this dude. And he was literally just a solicitor. Dad's like, "Well, if you wanted nothing, why were you staring in my windows like that?" Beat the tarnations out of him. So from there, he didn't really like the neighborhood anymore. Yeah. So he moved us on out to Garland.
And where was he working at the time? 'Cause I'm sure it wasn't. I mean,
it was bail bonds.
Okay.
My mom was working bail bonds. My dad would just go do little odds and ends stuff whenever she needed him to do certain things, or if he had to go catch somebody or go get somebody off of a bond or whatever, he'd go do that for her.
So he was essentially the enforcer of the bail bonds on that aspect, and that's how he got work.
Yeah.
What age were you when, like, Deputy Tally, all of that went on? In the chronology of all this.
Tally's a name I haven't heard in a very long time, and I do not honestly remember how old I was whenever Tally came into the situation. I don't know.
So there was one point where a Shelby County deputy or detective was not on the right side of the law.
Yeah.
They were interacting for a while, and I guess when one got caught, it became a duel of who was going to pinch who first.
That happened quite a lot, though, with different detectives and different attorneys and different people that my dad would run with. He'd get you before you got him.
Yeah.
He'd even do it to his family members. He got my uncle, which was so sad. But if he wanted you bad enough, he'd get you.
Do you want to expand on that, or?
Well, my uncle is a fucking phenomenal person. He's been in the Air Force his whole life. He literally is retired from it. And my dad found out when you're in the Air Force, you have certain stuff in front of you, and some of it can come up missing. Well, apparently my uncle had taken some things that weren't his, and to be an asshole, because my mom knew that my uncle would go save her if something happened, my dad tried to cut that lifeline off for my mom. So he rolled on my mom's brother, basically, and almost got his entire pension taken away from him, his retirement and everything. So
Jesus. Well, in the incident you're talking about, the Shelby County thing, there were some thefts, some pretty significant crimes that were happening, and then they became good friends, and he rolled on the Shelby County deputy.
Yeah. I think Tally had been a narcotic detective, and they ended up basically knocking off dope houses and stash houses, and
which happened quite a bit. Like when we were in Bauxite, my dad came home where my brother was with him, and they had went and knocked off a house, and they had both stepped through a glass coffee table, I guess trying to shoot at the person. The person had ran, and Dad just went charging, and yeah, they came home with cut up legs. And it's one thing to see your father in that kind of situation, but it's a whole other thing whenever he's getting your middle brother involved, and your brother ends up being exactly like him.
Yeah, and I never knew if he was incredibly brave, incredibly stupid, but either way, he had some large huevos, because he would tell me that he would take a pistol grip sawed-off shotgun, go to the biggest crack house in Memphis, kick the front door in, rack the shotgun, and ask him, "Do you believe in the here and after?" Well, here I am, and you know what I'm after.
Wow.
And, it's one thing for SWAT to go through a front door with shields and body armor and rifles and stacked deep with a team behind you, but to kick a door in solo with a shotgun and not knowing what's behind there, and it was like it was always something. Bigger than life, but always something.
Well, talk about, so you guys are in Garland, y'all moved to Garland. At some point, some connections were made back with this kingpin, right, back in Memphis.
So the situation that I don't even think Clint's aware of is that these people had been to our house. They had sat in the floor with us and, talked to us. Like, the one night right before it happened.
Ronnie, the kingpin or the shooters?
The shooters.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so the shooters had come over to our house to, I think, to finish paying on the debt that was owed. And Dad made us all go to our room. We all shared a room. All 5 of us children shared one big, huge bedroom. Well, the kids were getting to be a little too much, so I walked out in the hallway, and they didn't know I was there, so I got to hear a lot of the conversation that was going on about what was about to transpire, and it was exactly that. He was about to get one of their girlfriends out of jail. Well, the night they left, when they left that night, my dad threw the $20,000 in the floor, and we all played in it. Okay?
So part of the reason I don't know all this is when we went to trial, both of her and I were witnesses. So with the rule invoked, neither one of us are in the room. So this is stuff I don't. She may not know some of the stuff we testified to.
Yeah, I don't. I like the Billy Talley thing. I've not heard his name in a very long time. But anyway, we played in the money, and almost instantly we were gone, and we weren't moving. We were just gone. He picked us up and he took us to Six Flags over Texas. We had a really good time. We went to Wet and Wild, which is also in Texas. And
this was all happening in Garland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then from there, we came on back home because Dad had found us a place to live. I didn't know that while we were in Six Flags and Wet and Wild having a good old time, him and my mom were trying to find us another place to move to quickly. So the night that we got home, all of us kids are in the bedroom because we've just figured out what's going on. Dad's told us, hey, we're moving really quickly. Get your shit together, da-da-da-da. So we had about 3 days to get the house packed up. Well, that night, Joyce Barron calls. There's a voicemail from Miss Barron talking about how she can't believe that Dad took the money and split, and that these people are going to kill her and her family if Dad doesn't give the money back, and that it progressed on from there.
And the reason you know that a voicemail exists is because this is the old school time where voicemails were, you would call a phone.
Yeah, there's an answering machine.
There's an answering machine.
Yeah, they play
Well, this
back.
new generation has no idea what the hell those are.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is my parents did not know I was there. They had no idea I was there. I was standing right outside their bedroom window or their bedroom door as they're listening to these voicemails. The rest of my siblings were in their rooms with the door shut.
And Joyce Barron's like the godmother of.
We called her grandma. My dad called her mama.
And of the bond,
yes.
Blue bail bonds. And I mean,
yeah,
it was
after
a
Blue
big,
died, she took it over. Blue was her husband. So it was Joyce and Janet. They were sisters. And Joyce is the one that pulled the trigger. Joyce is the one that said, y'all go get him. I want my fucking money back. If I ain't getting money, I want blood. that's how that happened. So I don't know why Miss Joyce never got put in jail, but she definitely deserves to be put in jail. I've heard she's not doing so great these days. So
Wow, I didn't know
karma
that. I
caught
thought
her
Ronnie
ass.
the drug kingpin ordered that hit.
No, that was Joyce.
Wow.
Yeah, that was Joyce, because she just didn't like the way that my dad was not playing for her anymore. So Dad had known Joyce for a long time, a very long time before this shit happened.
So the voicemails are being played. You're probably there with your your jaw drop,
Yeah.
you know, on what's going on. How many days after that?
2.
Okay.
2 days after.
Walk us through those 2 days.
So it was a lot of tension. It was a lot of anxiety in the house. It was a lot of, hey, kids, you know, be aware. Let's pay attention, you know.
How old are you at this time?
I'm at 12.
Okay.
So we get the U-Haul on the 3rd day. Dad has found a place to go. Our house is already packed up. We're slowly, you know, getting the shit in the U-Haul. Well, we're out in the backyard, or out in the back. We have a, what do you call that? A little road that goes behind your houses.
Oh, alley.
Okay, so there's an alley, and me and my 2 baby brothers are playing in the alley. And I just so happen to look down the alley, and here's a car full of black men just sitting at the end of the alley, really paying attention to what we were doing, like really paying attention to what we were doing. I lost eye contact with them for a minute, and then I looked back, and I was like, no, they're still looking, so something's up. So I went in the house. I told my dad, I was like, hey, we've got company, and not the good feeling kind of company, you know. He said, okay. So he went out back, and when he went out back, they hauled ass and left. And so he thought that we were going to have enough time to be okay. So he gets Modesta, Aaron, my mom, and himself in the U-Haul, and they go to take it to the house that we had just rented. And there was not much left in our house. There was a little bit of dishes. There was some guns in the closet, and there was a little bit of other stuff, nothing real big, but just small stuff. Well, I knew something was about to go down, because right before my dad left, me and my dad were super close. They called him Bear. They called me Pooh Bear. He said, Pooh, you're in charge. He said, baby, if anything happens, he said, anything at all, call 911. He's like, call 911, baby. Just call 911. And I remember looking at him, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you trying to tell me that you're not fucking telling me right now? Because my dad would tell me things with his eyes, and he taught me how to G-talk so that he could tell me things whenever people weren't paying attention, because they don't understand that. So I asked him, I said, what are you trying to tell me? And he was like, I'm just telling you, 911, baby. And I said, okay, so shall it be. He pointed out where the guns were in the house so that I would know if I could get to them, where the hell they were. And then he left. And we're playing in the floor with our hamsters. We had 2 little hamsters and some balls. And my grandmother is in the kitchen wrapping dishes. I'm sitting here playing with the little ball. Well, we had decided that we wanted to play with the hamster without it being in the ball. So we had opened up the little thing, and we were playing with the hamster, and the hamster got lost. So the boys were really scared, because my dad was really mean. And so they go back in the back room to try to find me a clothes hanger so I could try to stick the clothes hanger underneath the fireplace to try to scare the hamster out the other side of the fireplace. Well, by the time the boys made it back to the back bedroom, I heard 3 kicks and the door was open. I was standing up. 2 gentlemen come in the house. You hear my grandmother say, oh, shit. My grandmother did not answer the door. My grandmother was standing in the kitchen. So when she saw them, she walked towards them, and she put her hands up, and she said, oh, shit. And the moment she said, oh, shit, they fired. And it shot her in her hand, went into her cheek, blew the side of her face off, and she landed on the ground. The second shooter shot me in the shoulder. I turned sideways, because my dad always told me if somebody pulled a gun on you, turn sideways, it gives them less of a target to hit. So I did exactly like he said. And it's the only reason I'm fucking here, I believe. I sat down. I played dead. I watched them go down the hallway. I watched them go into my brother's bedroom and open fire. I believe I heard 6 or 7 shots. I'm not even sure how many times they shot. I just remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to have any family left. When they got done shooting, they hooped and hollered their way out the house like they just did something amazing. Which I don't,
Real tough guys shooting kids.
super tough. And I can tell you that when they were going down the hallway, I caught a glimpse of someone standing at the front door, because when they kicked the door in, somebody was still standing out there, and you just see him really quick, like shoot, like run, like you just see him bolt. So I don't know whoever the hell that was standing outside, but I don't think they were expecting what had just happened to transpire.
Two came in.
One stood at the door for just a moment, just a very brief moment. Well, after they had left, I got up and I shut the front door, and I stepped over my grandmother's body, and I went and locked the back door because I was scared they were going to come in the back door next. And as I'm laying there, before I even got up, you should have saw a Rottweiler. We had a Rottweiler named Bear. That's a German-bred Rottweiler. He was trying to eat his way in the door. Like, we had a glass door. He was trying to eat his way into the door, poor thing. Like, he wanted them real bad. So after I got done with that, locked the front and the back door best I could, go in there, and I get my baby brothers, and Mark is jumping up and down. It's my youngest. He's jumping up and down. Adam is so white. He is so white. He got shot twice in the chest. So white. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, all I knew is that we needed to apply pressure. There just needed to be pressure on Adam. So I had Mark lay on top of Adam. I don't know why the bathtub got filled up with water. Unless I was just shook and told them to get in there with water in the bathtub, but they literally filled the bathtub up with water. And then I went and got on the phone with 911. I sat right by my grandmother watching her bleed out and snore while I'm talking to 911 and telling them that the house had just been shot up. So after that happened, they came and got us out of the house. We stayed in the hospital for quite a while.
At what point did your dad come back to the house?
We did not see my dad or my mom for probably, I would say at least like 5 or 6 hours after that. And in fact, my dad did not even get to me first. My dad was too pointed in to get to my mother because my mom was done. She was so done. She wanted out so bad at this point because she knew. She was like, Ronnie, what the fuck did you just do? And so I remember looking as they're cutting the scar tissue off my back because it burns. Like when you get shot, they have to cut that where it sees, like, it messes your skin up. So they have to cut that extra part off to where you can heal properly. And I remember them cutting, and I remember feeling like there was water, and I'm shaking my head. I'm looking, and when I'm looking out the door, what I'm seeing is not my parents, like, coming in to check on their fucking children to make sure we're okay. It's my dad consoling my mom because my mom was going to leave my dad. That's it. Not, hey, are the kids okay? While I'm sitting here getting that cut out of my body, I get to hear my baby brother screaming in the other room because he's hurt. He's hurt real bad.
On the next episode of Blue Grit Podcast.
Grandma passed. Three of the kiddos were home. You and your two baby brothers. Mom, dad, and two older kids were gone. Mm-hmm. How long were you in the hospital?
Let's see. Who got out first? Mark got out first because he was shot in his Achilles tendon. Then I got out after that, and then Adam was the last one to be released because he was in ICU for a while.
He was shot.
He was shot twice in the chest.
Rough.
Yeah, but that's my dad's MO. If he could find you, if he could find that you've got some kind of evil in you, he would pull it out.